Something is happening right now, and I need everybody watching Sleek Capital to really pay attention because this is no longer just about politics, war, or headlines. This is about where money is moving next, and most people are too distracted to notice it, while the world is focused on inflation, oil prices, interest rates, and global tension. Wall Street is already looking toward the next trillion-dollar opportunity. The biggest investors are not only thinking about what's happening today, they are thinking about who controls the future tomorrow. And right now, the future is revolving around computing power, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and quantum technology. That is where governments are spending billions. And when governments and corporations both start chasing the same thing at the same time, history shows us that massive wealth can be created. The scary part is most regular people won't pay attention until prices already explode, and by then the biggest opportunities are already gone. That's why David wanted to make this video today, because moments like this are exactly how life-changing wealth starts. Most people ignored AI in the beginning. Most people laughed at Bitcoin. Most people thought Nvidia was just another chip company years ago. Now look at where those companies ended up. The same pattern keeps repeating itself over and over again. But people still keep missing it because they only believe after the success already happened. What we are witnessing right now could be another one of those moments, and the people who understand it early could completely change their financial future over the next decade. Now think about what's happening around the world right now. Oil prices are unstable, supply chains are under pressure, shipping costs are moving up, and inflation fears are starting to rise again. Whenever inflation gets hotter, the Federal Reserve starts talking about interest rate hikes, and markets hate uncertainty. But while everybody else is staring at oil and geopolitical tension, smart money is quietly rotating into another sector entirely. Capital is moving into infrastructure, AI systems, advanced chips, defense technology, and quantum computing. Why? Because whoever controls computing power in the future will control industries, economies, defense systems, and technological leadership. This is no longer science fiction anymore. Artificial intelligence is already changing businesses. Robots are becoming more advanced every year. Automation is replacing jobs. Data centers are expanding globally. The world is becoming more dependent on technology faster than most people realize. That is why companies connected to compute infrastructure are becoming so important. And what most people fail to understand is that the biggest money is usually made before the mainstream fully understands what is happening. By the time everybody agrees something is valuable, the stock prices are already up thousands of %. That's why you cannot wait for everybody else to believe first. Wealth is often built by seeing the future early and positioning yourself before the crowd arrives. That's the difference between people who build generational wealth and people who spend years saying, "I wish I invested earlier." The first company investors have been watching closely is IBM. Now a lot of people hear IBM and immediately think about old technology, old computers, and a company that already had its moment decades ago. But that type of thinking is exactly why people miss opportunities. IBM has quietly spent years building one of the strongest quantum computing divisions in the world. They already have partnerships with governments, banks, healthcare companies, research organizations, and defense contractors. That matters because when quantum computing becomes commercialized, major institutions are not going to trust random startups first. They are going to trust stability, infrastructure, and experience. IBM already has the relationships and scale to become a major player in the future quantum economy. The company is deeply involved in enterprise AI, cloud systems, and advanced research, and they are positioning themselves to become part of the backbone of next-generation computing. That's why investors are paying attention. IBM is not trying to become a hype stock. They are trying to become essential infrastructure. And sometimes the biggest winners are not the loudest companies in the room. Sometimes the biggest winners are the companies quietly building the foundation while everybody else is distracted by headlines. If quantum computing truly becomes as important as experts believe, IBM could suddenly become far more valuable than most people currently realize because they already spend years preparing for this exact moment while the public was barely paying attention. The next company investors are paying attention to is GlobalFoundries, ticker symbol GFS. This company is important because none of these advanced technologies work without semiconductors. Artificial intelligence needs chips. Quantum systems need chips. Defense systems need chips. Autonomous vehicles need chips. Robotics need chips. Data centers need chips. Everything in the future revolves around computing hardware, and companies like GlobalFoundries help manufacture that foundation. What wealthy investors understand is that sometimes the biggest money is not made from the flashy company everybody talks about. Sometimes the real money is made from the companies supplying the tools and infrastructure behind the scenes. GlobalFoundries operates more like the pick sand shovels business during a gold rush. While everybody focuses on AI software companies, manufacturing companies helping build the physical backbone of the technology boom could quietly become incredibly important over the next decade. Governments are already trying to secure domestic chip manufacturing because they understand how critical semiconductors are for national security and economic power. That gives companies like GlobalFoundries strategic importance that many investors still underestimate today. And once capital starts rotating heavily into infrastructure and advanced computing systems, these companies could benefit massively from long-term demand. Again, this is not about hype. This is about understanding where the world is moving. The future economy will rely heavily on compute infrastructure, and semiconductor manufacturing sits right at the center of that transformation. Now let's talk about one of the more speculative names in the space, D-Wave Quantum, ticker symbol QBTS. This company focuses heavily on quantum systems designed to solve optimization problems that traditional computers struggle with. Now that may sound complicated, but let me simplify it. Imagine shipping companies trying to optimize global routes instantly. Imagine financial firms analyzing millions of market scenarios in seconds. Imagine hospitals improving treatment systems faster than ever before. Imagine governments running advanced defense simulations, impossible for normal computers. These are the types of problems quantum technology is trying to solve. That's why investors are starting to pay attention to this sector. The possibilities are enormous if this technology continues improving. Now, yes, companies like D-Wave are risky. These are not stable blue-chip stocks. These are speculative growth plays connected to a technology that is still developing. But every major technological revolution started this way. People once doubted the internet. People once doubted smartphones. People once doubted artificial intelligence. Eventually, the technology improved, adoption increased, and fortunes were created. The same thing could potentially happen with quantum computing over the next decade. That does not mean every company will succeed, because many won't, but investors are watching closely because even a small leadership position in this industry could create enormous value in the future. That's why smart money is beginning to pay attention now before the mainstream fully catches on to how important this technology could eventually become. Then we have Rigetti Computing, ticker symbol or GTI, which many investors view as one of the purest quantum computing plays in the market. This company focuses directly on superconducting quantum systems and advanced quantum processors. Now, because Rigetti is such a direct quantum play, the stock can become extremely volatile. Prices can rise fast and fall just as quickly, but sometimes volatility is simply part of being early in a revolutionary industry. Investors interested in Rigetti are essentially making a bet on the future growth of quantum technology itself. And the reason people are willing to take that risk is because the upside potential could be massive if quantum computing becomes commercially important. Think about how early investors felt owning Nvidia before AI exploded. Think about how people ignored companies connected to the internet before the digital age completely changed the world. Most people only recognize the importance of a technology after it already dominates society. By then, many of the biggest gains are already gone. That's why some investors are willing to tolerate volatility now in exchange for long-term exposure to a potentially massive industry later. But this is important to understand clearly. This is not gambling money. This is not rent money. This is not money you cannot afford to lose. The goal is not reckless investing. The goal is positioning yourself intelligently for the future while managing risk responsibly. That's the difference between investing emotionally and investing strategically in emerging technology sectors. At the end of the day, this entire conversation is bigger than just for stocks. This is really about understanding where the world is going. Artificial intelligence is not slowing down. Automation is not slowing down. Robotics are improving every year. Governments are investing billions into advanced technology, infrastructure because they know the future economy will revolve around computing power and technological leadership. The companies helping build that future could become some of the most valuable businesses on Earth over the next 10 years. That's why David keeps telling y'all to stop focusing only on what the world looks like today and start paying attention to where the world is moving tomorrow, because wealth is usually created by people who see the trend before the rest of society believes in it. And yes, these sectors will be volatile, prices will rise, crash, recover, and scare people out repeatedly. That's what growth industries do, but sometimes volatility is exactly what pushes average investors away before the real long-term move happens. That's why patience matters, conviction matters, information matters. Nobody knows exactly which company will dominate quantum computing years from now, but one thing is becoming very clear: governments, corporations, and investors are all racing toward advanced computing technology at the same time. And whenever that much money and attention move toward one sector, opportunities are created for the people paying attention early. It's your boy David from Sleek Capital, and I'll catch you in the next one. Salute.